Have you ever thought, it's too late for me to start investing? A lot of people in their 40s believe they already missed their chance. They think the winners are the people who started at 20, bought early, and had decades of compounding on their side. And yes, starting early is powerful. But that does not mean starting at 40 is too late. That idea comes from an old model of life. There was a time when 60 felt old. At 40, people felt like they were already entering the final stage. In that world, maybe too late made more sense. But that is not the world we live in anymore. We now live in a time when many people may live to 90 or even 100. Medicine is improving. Technology is changing how long we can work, learn, and stay active. A longer life changes the meaning of time. If life is a 100-year game, then 40 is not the end. It is not even close. In many ways, it is just the beginning of the second half. And in money, the second half matters a lot. Because wealth is not built only by youth. It is built by time, consistency, and behavior. That is why people in their 40s still have something extremely valuable. They still have time. A 40-year-old may still have 40, 50, or even 60 years ahead. That is not a short window. That is an entire financial runway. Think about it. If you are 40 today and live to 80, you still have 40 years. If you live to 90, you have 50 years. If you live to 100, you have 60 years. Can we honestly call that too late? Most people hear the word investing and immediately think about age. But age is only one variable. What matters just as much is your ability to keep going. And this is where 40 can actually be a strong place to start. In your 20s, you may have more time, but often less money. Your career may be unstable. Your habits may still be forming. Your life can change fast. By your 40s, many people have something different. More stable income, more patience, more discipline, more clarity about what actually matters. That matters because investing is not about chasing excitement. It is not about getting rich next year. It is about taking a piece of your earned income and turning it into assets that can grow over time. That process rewards consistency far more than brilliance. At first, you work for money. Then slowly, if you invest, your money begins to work for you. That is the shift. Most people live only on labor income. They trade hours, energy, and attention for money. And as long as they can keep working, the system functions. But in a long life, depending only on labor becomes dangerous. Because the longer life gets, the more years. You may eventually need support beyond your paycheck. That is why investing matters so much in the modern world. It is not just about becoming rich. It is about reducing dependence on labor over time. It is about building another source of support. A quieter one, a slower one, but a stronger one in the long run. And this is exactly why starting at 40 still matters. Because the real mistake is not starting at 40. The real mistake is knowing you should start at 40 and then waiting until 50. 10 years matters. In investing, 10 years is not just time passing. It is time compounding. It is time allowing small actions to become meaningful. Many people misunderstand how compounding works. They expect it to feel exciting right away. But usually it doesn't. The first few years can feel almost invisible. You contribute money. You wait. The account grows, but not dramatically. Nothing about your life feels transformed. That is why many people quit too early. But compounding is not supposed to impress you in the beginning. Its power shows up later. At first, your portfolio grows mostly because of what you put in. Later, it starts growing because of what it has already become. Then the returns begin generating more returns. That is when the curve starts to bend. This is the moment many people never reach, not because it is impossible, but because they stop too soon. At the beginning, you are carrying the investment. Later, the investment starts carrying you. That is one of the most important shifts in personal finance. And you do not need to be a genius to get there. You do not need to predict every market move. You do not need to find the perfect stock. What you need is simpler than that. You need a plan. You need discipline. You need time. And most importantly, you need to begin. That beginning does not have to be dramatic. It can be small. Maybe you start by controlling spending more carefully. Maybe you build an emergency fund first. Maybe you invest a modest amount every month into broad, long-term assets and let time do its work. That is not flashy, but wealth rarely begins in a flashy way. It begins quietly. And that is what many people miss. They are waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect amount of money, or the perfect confidence. But the market does not reward perfection. It rewards participation with discipline. There will always be reasons to hesitate. Markets go down, news gets scary, people panic, uncertainty never disappears. But long-term investors do not win because they feel confident every day. They win because they keep following a process even when emotions get loud. That is especially important for someone starting at 40. You do not need to feel regret about not starting earlier. Regret does not compound, action does. The only useful question now is this: how many years can I still put on my side? That is the question that matters in a 100-year life. Because once you accept that your life may be much longer than older generations expected, you also have to accept a new responsibility. You cannot rely on the old script. You cannot assume working alone will be enough forever. You cannot treat investing like something only young people need to think about. A long life requires long-term systems, and investing is one of the most important systems you can build. It gives structure to the future. It creates optionality. It slowly gives you freedom. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in the first year, but over time it can change the shape of your life. Start at 40, and by 50 you may have built a real foundation. By 60, your assets may begin to play a meaningful role. By 70, you may be less dependent on work than you once thought possible. That is not fantasy. That is what happens when time and consistency meet. So no, 40 is not too late. In a 100-year life, 40 is not the closing chapter. It is the start of a more intentional phase. A phase where your income, your judgment, and your patience can finally begin working together. And that is why the second half can be so powerful. The first half of life is often about learning, making mistakes, building skills, trying things, understanding yourself. The second half is where those lessons can begin to pay you back. That is where real money is often made. Not because the years suddenly become magical, but because experience finally meets direction. So if you are 40, you are not behind. If you are 50, you are not out of time. Even later in life, the principle still matters. Because in the end, wealth is not built by wishing you had started sooner. It is built by starting while time still remains. And if you are alive today, time still remains. So start. Start small if you need to. Start quietly if you need to. Start imperfectly if you need to. But start. Because one day, you may look back and realize that the moment you thought was too late was actually the moment your future began to change. Closing. In a 100-year game, starting at 40 is not late. It is the beginning of the second half. And the second half is where the real money is made. If you want more content about investing, money, and long-term wealth, without hype or confusion, follow Hope Reactor. Because building wealth is not about impressing people with how early you started. It is about changing your future with the time you still have.